My beloved child, before you go any further, I need you to understand something. You may feel unseen. You may feel forgotten. You may feel as though nobody truly understands what you have been carrying. But I do. I saw the battle nobody knew about. I saw the tears you wiped away before anyone could notice. I saw the smile you forced onto your face while your heart was breaking behind it. I saw the moments when you told everyone you were fine, even though inside you felt exhausted. You have carried burdens that few people ever recognized. Some of them were not visible. Some of them had no name. Some of them were wounds so deep you did not even know how to explain them. But I saw them all. I saw the nights when sleep would not come, when your mind raced from one worry to another, when fear whispered worst-case scenarios into your thoughts, when anxiety sat beside you in the darkness and refused to leave. You felt alone in those moments, but you were not alone. I was there. I heard every prayer you prayed through tears. I heard every question you asked when you thought heaven was silent. I heard you asking, "Lord, where are you?" I heard you asking, "Why is this taking so long?" I heard you asking, "Have you forgotten me?" And even when you could not feel my presence, I never left your side. I saw the disappointment that followed unanswered expectations, the opportunities that disappeared, the relationships that ended, the plans that fell apart, the doors you desperately wanted to open but remained closed. You wondered if you had done something wrong. You wondered if you had missed your chance. You wondered if your future would ever change. But my child, what you called rejection was often protection. What you called delay was often preparation. And what you called silence was often my hand working where your eyes could not see. I also saw the battles inside your own mind, the moments when doubt became louder than faith, the moments when you questioned your worth, the moments when you looked at others moving forward and wondered why your life seemed stuck. You compared yourself. You judged yourself. You blamed yourself. And slowly, the weight became heavier. Yet even then, I saw something beautiful inside you. I saw that despite everything, you kept going. You got up one more day. You tried one more time. You prayed one more prayer. You took another step forward when every part of you wanted to quit. You call that weakness. Heaven calls it courage. The enemy wanted you to believe you were failing, but what he feared most was your refusal to completely give up. Because every time you stood back up, even with trembling knees, you were proving that my strength was still working within you. I saw the battles nobody applauded, the temptations you resisted, the tears nobody comforted, the sacrifices nobody appreciated, the lonely decisions nobody understood. I saw all of it. Not one act of faithfulness escaped my attention. Not one cry went unheard. Not one moment of pain was wasted. And there is something else I need you to know. The struggle you have been facing was never proof that I abandoned you. In many ways, it was proof that I was shaping you. Because some lessons can only be learned in waiting. Some strength can only be built in hardship. Some victories can only be appreciated after a season of endurance. The person you are becoming today could not exist without the battles you survived yesterday. That is why I never stopped watching over you. That is why I never stopped guiding you. And that is why I brought you here today. Because before I can show you where you are going, I need you to understand where you have been. I need you to see that your story is not one of abandonment. It is a story of preservation. It is a story of survival. It is a story of grace. And what I am about to reveal next may completely change the way you see the waiting season you have been living through. Because the truth is, my child, nothing has been standing still. Even when it looked like nothing was moving, I have been working all along. My beloved child, I know there were moments when you looked around and wondered why nothing seemed to be moving. You prayed, you waited, you hoped, and yet the answer did not arrive when you expected. The opportunity did not appear. The breakthrough did not come. The situation did not change. And slowly, a question began growing inside your heart. Lord, why is nothing happening? I heard that question more than once, more times than you realize. And today I want to answer it. The reason nothing appeared to move was not because I had forgotten you. It was not because your prayers were weak. It was not because your faith was insufficient. And it certainly was not because I stopped caring. The truth is much different. While you thought nothing was happening, I was working in places your eyes could not see. You were looking at the surface. I was working at the foundation. You were looking at the present moment. I was preparing your future. You were asking for immediate relief. I was building lasting transformation. My child, there are blessings that can arrive quickly, but there are other blessings that require preparation. What you have been praying for belongs to the second category. Had I opened certain doors too soon, you would not have been ready for what was waiting behind them. Had I answered certain prayers immediately, you might have received the gift, but lost the purpose attached to it. There were lessons you needed to learn, strength you needed to develop, wisdom you needed to gain, not because I wanted to make your journey harder, but because I wanted to make your future stronger. You see delay as empty space. I see delay as preparation space. While you were waiting, I was shaping your character. While you were wondering, I was arranging circumstances. While you were feeling forgotten, I was protecting you from things you could not yet understand. There were people I removed from your path because they could not go where I am taking you. There were opportunities I allowed to close because they would have distracted you from your true calling. There were situations I refused to bless because they would have eventually broken your heart. At the time, you saw loss. I saw protection. At the time, you saw disappointment. I saw redirection. At the time, you saw closed doors. I saw dangerous roads being blocked. That is why you must stop measuring my work only by what you can see. The greatest things I do often begin underground, hidden from view. A seed does not appear to be growing when it is buried beneath the soil. Yet beneath the surface, life is already forming. Roots are developing. Strength is increasing. Preparation is taking place. And then one day, what was invisible becomes impossible to ignore. In many ways, that has been your season. You have felt buried, but you were not buried to be forgotten. You were planted to grow. There is a difference. The enemy wanted you to interpret the waiting as rejection. He wanted you to believe the silence meant abandonment. He wanted you to conclude that your story would never change. Because if he could make you quit during the preparation season, you would never reach the harvest season. But my child, I did not bring you this far to leave you where you are. Every difficult lesson, every painful delay, every unexpected detour, every unanswered question, I have been using all of it. Nothing has been wasted, not a single tear, not a single prayer, not a single moment of faithfulness. Even now, as you listen to these words, pieces are moving into place. Doors you cannot yet see are being prepared. Answers are moving closer. Circumstances are aligning. And what once looked impossible is beginning to shift in ways you do not yet understand. That is why I need you to hold on a little longer. Trust me a little deeper. Believe me a little stronger. Because the story is not ending where you thought it would. In fact, the very thing that made the waiting so difficult is the same thing that is about to make the breakthrough so meaningful. And there is another truth you must understand. The battle became so intense because the enemy recognized something you did not. He saw the future I was preparing for you, and he feared it. That is what I will show you next. My beloved child, there is something you need to understand about the battles you have faced. They were not random, they were not meaningless, and they were not proof that you were weak. In fact, many of the attacks that came against your life happened because of something valuable that was hidden inside you. The enemy attacked what he feared most. For a long time, you believed the struggle was about your present circumstances. You thought the pressure was about today's problems, today's worries, today's disappointments. But the battle was always bigger than that. The enemy was never focused only on where you were. He was focused on where I was taking you. He saw possibilities you could not yet see. He saw purpose before you recognized it. He saw potential before you believed it. And because he could not stop my plan, he tried to stop your faith. That is why the attacks became so intense. That is why discouragement seemed to arrive whenever you were getting closer to a breakthrough. That is why doubt appeared whenever you started trusting me again. That is why fear whispered loudest when hope was beginning to rise. The enemy understood something that you did not fully understand at the time. He knew that if you ever saw yourself the way I see you, everything would change. He knew that if you ever believed what I placed inside you, chains would begin to break. He knew that if you ever fully stepped into your calling, Lives would be impacted far beyond your own. So he launched attacks against your confidence, against your peace, against your identity, against your hope. He wanted you exhausted. He wanted you distracted. He wanted you focused on survival instead of purpose. Because a distracted child of God is easier to discourage than a focused one. Think about the moments when you almost gave up. The moments when disappointment seemed unbearable. The moments when you questioned everything. You believed those moments were evidence that you were losing. But heaven saw something completely different. Heaven saw endurance growing. Heaven saw faith being strengthened. Heaven saw character being formed. The very things that were meant to destroy you were being transformed into tools that would eventually strengthen you. That does not mean the pain was easy. It was real. The tears were real. The heartbreak was real. The loneliness was real. But none of it had the final word. Because every attack had a limit. Every storm had an expiration date. Every season of pressure had a purpose. The enemy wanted you to believe that your story was ending. I was preparing a new chapter. The enemy wanted you to believe that you had been forgotten. I was positioning you. The enemy wanted you to believe that nothing would ever change. I was arranging things behind the scenes. My child, there is a reason you are still standing today. There is a reason you survived battles that should have broken you. There is a reason you made it through seasons that seemed impossible. It was not luck. It was not coincidence. It was my hand upon your life. Many times, the enemy expected you to quit. He expected your faith to collapse. He expected your heart to harden. He expected you to walk away from your purpose. But you are still here. You may not feel strong. You may not feel ready. You may not feel victorious. Yet you are still here. And that alone tells a powerful story. Because every day you continued moving forward, even slowly, you were proving that my grace was greater than the attack. You were proving that my presence was stronger than the pressure. You were proving that the future I prepared for you could not be erased. The enemy attacked what he feared most, and what he feared was not who you used to be. He feared who you are becoming. He feared the healed version of you, the restored version of you, the faithful version of you, the version of you that finally stops listening to fear and starts walking in confidence. That is why the battle became so fierce. But listen carefully. The fact that the attack was strong does not mean the enemy is winning. Sometimes the intensity of the battle reveals the importance of the breakthrough that is coming. And what I am about to show you next is something the enemy desperately hoped you would never discover. Because the door you have been praying for may be much closer than you think. My beloved child, if you are still here listening to these words, I do not believe that is an accident. Many people would have left already. Many people would have become distracted, but you are still here. And perhaps that is because something deep inside your spirit recognizes that this message was meant for you. Before we continue, take a moment and declare your faith. Type, Lord, I trust your timing. Let those words be more than a comment. Let them be a reminder that even when you could not see my hand, I was still working. And if this message is speaking to your heart, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who may need this encouragement today. You never know whose life could be changed by a single message of hope. Now stay with me, because what I am about to reveal next may be the very confirmation you have been praying for. My beloved child, after everything you have endured, after all the waiting, all the uncertainty, and all the questions you have carried, I want you to hear me clearly. The door you prayed for is nearer than you think. I know there were days when it felt impossible to believe that. Days when every prayer seemed to disappear into silence. Days when you looked around and saw no evidence that anything was changing. You wondered if the breakthrough would ever come. You wondered if the promise was still alive. You wondered if the dream you placed before me had somehow been forgotten. But my child, what you cannot see is not the same as what does not exist. Many times, while you were looking for visible signs, I was working beneath the surface. While you were watching, one door remained closed. I was preparing another one you never expected. While you were focused on your timeline, I was arranging the right people, the right opportunities, and the right season. Nothing has been delayed by accident. Nothing has been overlooked. Nothing has escaped my attention. I know the prayers you have prayed concerning your family. I know the tears you have shed over loved ones. I know the concerns that have kept you awake at night. And even now, I am working in hearts you cannot reach and situations you cannot control. I know the financial pressures that have weighed heavily upon you. The bills, the uncertainty, the fear of not having enough. I know every detail, and I want you to remember that I am not limited by the limitations you see around you. I am able to provide in ways you have not yet imagined. I know the healing you have been seeking, the strength you have needed, the peace you have longed to feel again. Nothing has been forgotten. Nothing has been ignored. My child, one of the enemy's greatest strategies is convincing you that because you cannot see movement, nothing is moving. But that is not the truth. Seeds grow long before they break through the soil. The sunrise begins before the first light appears on the horizon, and many miracles begin before there is any visible evidence that they are coming. You are standing in one of those seasons now, a season where movement is taking place, even if you cannot yet see it. A season where answers are drawing closer even if they have not yet arrived. A season where preparation is becoming manifestation. That is why I need you to resist the temptation to give up now. Do not quit at the edge of your breakthrough. Do not walk away from the very thing you have been praying for. Do not allow discouragement to convince you that the story is over when heaven is still writing the next chapter. There are blessings approaching that you cannot yet see. There are opportunities being prepared that you cannot yet imagine. There are answers already moving toward you, and when they arrive, you will understand why the waiting was necessary. You will understand why certain doors had to remain closed. You will understand why some relationships ended. You will understand why some plans fell apart, because what I have prepared is greater than what you were trying to hold on to. But before that door opens fully, there is something important you must do. You must continue trusting me even when you cannot see the outcome. You must continue walking by faith and not by sight. You must continue believing that I am working even in the silence. Because faith is not believing after you see the miracle. Faith is trusting before it appears. My child, the door you prayed for is not as far away as it feels. The answer is not as distant as it seems. The breakthrough is not as impossible as the enemy wants you to believe. In fact, you are closer than you realize. Closer than you were yesterday. Closer than you were last month. Closer than you have been in a very long time. But there is a warning I must give you, because whenever a new season approaches, the enemy often launches one final attempt to pull you backward. And what happens next will determine whether you step into the future I prepared for you or return to the place I already called you out of. My beloved child, listen carefully to what I am about to tell you. The closer you get to the door I have prepared for you, the stronger the temptation will be to return to what I already delivered you from. This is one of the enemy's oldest strategies. When he realizes he cannot stop your future, he tries to reconnect you to your past. He reminds you of old habits, old fears, old wounds, old identities. He whispers, "Nothing has really changed." He tries to convince you that you are still the same person you were before, but my child, you are not. You have walked through too much to remain the same. You have survived battles that once would have defeated you. You have learned lessons that could only be learned through hardship. You have gained strength through seasons you never wanted to endure. And now that a new season is approaching, you cannot afford to go backward. The old version of you cannot enter the place I am taking you. The version of you that lived in constant fear. The version of you that doubted every promise. The version of you that allowed rejection to define your worth. The version of you that believed every lie spoken against you. That person cannot go where you are going. I am calling you higher. I am calling you forward. I am calling you into freedom. Yet many people lose their breakthrough because they become familiar with their struggle. They grow comfortable in survival mode. They become attached to the pain they have carried for so long. Without realizing it, they begin identifying with the very things I am trying to heal. Do not make that mistake. You are not your disappointment. You are not your failure. You are not your anxiety. You are not your past mistakes. You are not the labels others placed upon you. You are who I say you are. Chosen, loved, forgiven, called, and destined for more than you can currently see. My child, some doors close permanently for a reason. Some relationships ended because they could not follow you into your next season. Some opportunities disappeared because they were distractions, not assignments. Some chapters ended because their purpose had already been fulfilled. Stop looking backward at what I removed. Start looking forward at what I am preparing. The enemy wants you staring at closed doors. I want you watching for the doors that are about to open. The enemy wants you grieving over who left. I want you preparing for who is coming. The enemy wants you focused on what was lost. I want you focused on what is being built. You cannot move forward while constantly returning to yesterday. And there is something else you must understand. The enemy often attacks hardest right before a breakthrough. Not because he is becoming stronger, but because he knows his time is becoming shorter. That sudden discouragement, that unexpected temptation, that overwhelming feeling of doubt, those thoughts telling you to quit, those urges to return to old patterns, they are not signs that you are failing. Sometimes they are signs that you are getting closer. Closer to healing, closer to freedom, closer to the answer you have been waiting for. That is why you must stand firm now. Do not rebuild what I tore down. Do not reopen what I closed. Do not revisit places that nearly destroyed you. Do not return to conversations, mindsets, or habits that kept you trapped. Trust me enough to leave the past behind. Trust me enough to believe that what lies ahead is greater than what lies behind. Because the future I prepared for you requires a different version of you, a stronger version, a wiser version, a more faithful version. And that transformation has already begun. You may not see it fully yet, but heaven sees it clearly. The person you are becoming is already emerging from the struggle. The healing is already happening. The growth is already taking place. The shift is already underway. And in the next season, you will begin to understand that every battle, every delay, and every lesson was preparing you for something far greater than you imagined. Because while you were fighting to survive, heaven was preparing something in secret, something that has been moving toward you for far longer than you realize. My beloved child, there is something I want you to understand before you take another step forward. The reason you have not seen everything yet is not because nothing has been happening. It is because some of my greatest works happen in secret before they are revealed in public. While you were waiting, heaven was working. While you were crying, heaven was preparing. While you were doubting, heaven was arranging what you could not yet see. You have spent so much time focusing on what seemed absent that you almost missed what was being built behind the scenes. But I have not been idle. I have not been silent. And I have certainly not forgotten you. While you were wondering why the answer had not arrived, I was positioning people whose paths would eventually cross yours. While you were grieving over a closed door, I was constructing a better one. While you were struggling to understand the delay, I was protecting you from battles you were not meant to fight. You only see one piece of the puzzle. I see the entire picture. That is why I need you to trust me when the process does not make sense. Because what I am building is bigger than the prayer you prayed, bigger than the opportunity you imagined, bigger than the solution you expected. Many times you asked me for relief, but I was preparing transformation. You asked me to change a situation. I was changing you. You asked me to remove the struggle. I was developing strength within you. You asked me for an answer. I was preparing a future. My child, there are blessings that arrive suddenly, but they were prepared slowly. The world calls them miracles. Heaven calls them completed assignments. Long before you see the manifestation, preparation is already taking place. Long before a harvest appears, seeds are growing beneath the ground. Long before the breakthrough arrives, countless unseen details have already been set in motion. And that is exactly what has been happening in your life. While you were fighting to survive one day at a time, I was writing a story larger than you could imagine. While you were carrying burdens, I was building endurance. While you were enduring disappointments, I was teaching wisdom. While you were walking through loneliness, I was drawing you closer to me. Nothing was wasted. Not the tears, not the waiting, not the setbacks, not even the mistakes you regret. I am able to redeem what others call wasted years. I am able to turn broken places into testimonies. I am able to create beauty from ashes. And I have been doing exactly that. There were moments when you thought your life had stopped moving, but heaven never stopped moving. Angels were carrying assignments. Doors were being prepared. Obstacles were being removed. Lessons were being completed. And timing was being aligned. Even now, there are things moving in your favor that you know nothing about. Conversations are taking place. Opportunities are developing. Circumstances are shifting. Answers are approaching. Not because of luck, not because of chance, but because I am faithful to complete what I begin. My child, one day you will look back and understand why certain prayers took longer than expected. You will understand why some roads had to end, why some people had to leave, why some plans had to fail. You will see that what felt like disappointment was often divine direction. What felt like loss was often protection. What felt like silence was often preparation. And when that understanding comes, you will realize that I was never late, not once. Everything happened according to a purpose greater than what you could see. So, do not grow weary now. Do not lose heart. Do not let temporary circumstances convince you that permanent promises have failed. The answer has been moving toward you longer than you realize. The preparation has been taking place longer than you know. And the season you are entering will reveal what heaven has been quietly building all along. Because something has already begun to shift. You may feel it. You may not fully understand it yet. But the atmosphere around your life is changing. The chapter is changing. The season is changing. And what comes next may be unlike anything you have experienced before. My beloved child, by now you may be wondering when everything will finally change. You have heard about the preparation. You have endured the waiting. You have survived the battles. And perhaps you are still looking for a sign that something is actually happening. Let me tell you something that may surprise you. The shift has already begun. Not tomorrow, not someday, not in some distant future. It has already started. The reason you cannot fully see it yet is because many of the most important changes happen within before they appear around you. Look closely at your life. You are not the same person you were a year ago. You are not the same person you were during your darkest season. The things that once controlled you do not hold the same power they once did. The fears that once paralyzed you no longer define every decision. The storms that once would have destroyed you now reveal how much stronger you have become. That is evidence of the shift. While you were waiting for circumstances to change, I was changing your heart. While you were waiting for external breakthroughs, I was creating internal transformation. While you were asking me to move mountains, I was teaching you how to stand firm in front of them. The shift began the moment you refused to give up. The shift began the moment you kept believing despite disappointment. The shift began the moment you chose faith over fear. The shift began when you continued walking even though you could not see the destination. You thought you were simply surviving. But heaven saw something else. Heaven saw growth. Heaven saw maturity. Heaven saw preparation reaching completion. My child, many people want the blessing without becoming the person capable of carrying it. But I love you too much to give you something that would overwhelm you. That is why I prepared you first. That is why the process took time. That is why the lessons mattered. Now the very things that once felt like obstacles are becoming part of your testimony. The pain is becoming wisdom. The waiting is becoming strength. The disappointment is becoming perspective. The struggle is becoming purpose. And soon you will begin to see with your own eyes what heaven has been accomplishing all along. There are changes already taking place around you. Some are small enough that you have not noticed them yet. Some are hidden. Some are still developing. But they are real. The atmosphere around your life is changing. The direction of your story is changing. The season you have been living in is changing. You may still have questions. You may still have moments of uncertainty. But do not confuse temporary uncertainty with permanent defeat. You are not moving backward. You are moving through. And there is a difference. The enemy wants you to focus on what has not happened yet. I want you to recognize what has already begun. The healing has begun. The restoration has begun. The preparation has begun bearing fruit. The shift has already begun. And because of that, you must not lose heart now. You must not surrender now. You must not stop believing now. You have come too far. You have survived too much. You have been carried through too many impossible moments. The chapter that is ending does not define your future. The chapter that is beginning does. So lift your head, my child. Take courage. Keep walking forward. because what you once prayed for is closer than ever before. And before this message ends, there is one final truth I need you to remember. Through every delay, through every battle, through every season of waiting, you were never forgotten. My beloved child, before this message comes to an end, I want you to hold on to one truth above all others. You were never forgotten, not for a single day, not for a single moment, not even during the seasons when it felt like heaven was silent. I know there were times when you questioned everything, times when the waiting felt endless, times when disappointment made you wonder if the promises would ever come to pass. You looked around and saw others moving forward while you remained in the same place. You prayed, you hoped, you believed, and still, the answers seemed far away. But my child, what felt like abandonment was never abandonment. What felt like silence was never absence. What felt like delay was never rejection. I was there through all of it. I was there on the nights when nobody knew how much you were hurting. I was there when you fought battles you could not explain. I was there when fear tried to convince you to give up. I was there when tears became your prayers because words were no longer enough. And through every moment, my hand remained upon your life. You may not have understood the journey while you were walking through it, but one day you will look back and see my fingerprints on every chapter. You will see how I protected you from what would have harmed you, how I redirected you when you were heading toward the wrong door, how I strengthened you through struggles that seemed unfair, how I carried you when your own strength was gone. Nothing was wasted. Not the waiting, not the pain, not the tears, not the setbacks. I will use every part of your story for good, even the chapters you wish had never happened. My child, the enemy wanted you to believe that your story was ending in disappointment. But I am telling you now that your story is still unfolding. The pages are still being written, the promises are still alive, and the future I prepared for you is still ahead. So release the fear, release the disappointment, release the belief that you have been left behind. You are not forgotten. You are not abandoned. You are not overlooked. You are deeply known, deeply loved, and deeply cared for by the one who has walked beside you from the very beginning. Lift up your head. Take one more step. Trust me one more time, because the same God who carried you through the last season will carry you through the next. And when you finally see everything I have been preparing, you will understand that even in the waiting, even in the silence, and even in the struggle, I never left you, and I never will. My beloved child, if this message has spoken to your heart today, do not let this moment pass without responding. You did not arrive here by accident. You did not listen this far without a reason. Perhaps this was the encouragement you needed. Perhaps this was the reminder your soul had been waiting for. And perhaps this was my way of telling you that your story is not over. Before you leave, take a moment and make a declaration of faith. Type, Lord, I will not give up. Let those words be your commitment to keep trusting, keep believing, and keep moving forward no matter what stands before you. And if this message encouraged you, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss the messages prepared for you. Also, share this video with someone who may be struggling right now. You never know who needs to hear that they are not forgotten, not abandoned, and not alone. Remember this truth as you go. The delay was not your ending. The struggle was not your destruction. The waiting was not wasted. God is still working. God is still leading. And your breakthrough may be closer than you think. Until next time, keep your faith strong, keep your eyes forward, and keep trusting the one who has never left your side.